And there we go. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Buddy Raspberry Show, the one wherein we introduce the segments. Yes, I decided that if I waited for the news to slow down at all so that I could catch up and kind of try to create a decent news segment around going live, that I would be waiting for a long time. And so it was now or never, and thank you for your patience in waiting kindly between these episodes because I know you've been bated breath. Anyway, so in this episode, we are going to talk about the convenient conversion, and also I'm going to give you my book review of Robin Wall Kimmerer's The Serviceberry, which I'm very excited about because it's been a long time since I've written a book review, and so I'm going to kind of read it and then talk about it a little bit as well, unpack it. We got an album review for Pussifer's Normal Isn't coming up. And we've got an album review for U2's Days of Ash coming up, of course. And then, of course, we've got just some news. Lots of stuff to discuss regarding the pending apocalypse and all of that wonderful. I laugh because I want to cry. So let's just be real. I've got a lot to say on that. That's not going to ramble on, I promise, because I've been kind of rehearsing it, and it'll go hand in hand with the convenient conversion. But anyone who's been paying any kind of attention to me at all for any length of time knows that I've been kind of trying to do my part to dismantle Christianity from the not necessarily inside out, but there is just I have a zero tolerance policy around any kind of allowance for trying to make any room for anything less or anything more. How do I want to put this? I should probably wait until we dive into the segment. But anyone who knows me knows that I've been kind of waving this flag around how dangerous the actual rhetoric around the end times and the world is going to end and the second coming and all that crap for quite a while now. And a while back, I really strongly recommended that everyone watch a documentary called Shiny Happy People. And it kind of starts off as a little bit of a documentary that's mostly just about the Duggins daughter. And I am failing to have that information right in front of me so I can refer to it. But anyway, this is a really long intro to saying that we're going to talk about all that stuff in this show. And before I go any further, we're going to go ahead and play the intro for anyone who doesn't know who I am.
Yes, it's my real name. I was raised by a Pentecostal preacher from Mississippi and Portland, Oregon, which probably explains a lot. I wrote and performed my first song for my dad's church when I was just 10. Been a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Been married, divorced, closeted, out, drunk for years, and sober for years. Been a good dad and a bad dad, and somehow lucky enough to be a young grandpa. This show exists because I'm a creator, and if something inspires me, there's a pretty good chance it'll inspire you too. Music, science, art, politics, religion, adorable cats and dogs, awe and gratitude, or why we laugh at our own farts. Somehow along the way I decided to go left instead of right, and now I'm addicted to breaking habits and noticing things. I'm Buddy Raspberry, and this is my show.
Woke up and decided I would deviate.
All right, episode 2, here we are. The one wherein we introduce segments. I am Buddy Raspberry, your host of The Buddy Raspberry Show. And as I said, we are going to be discussing what I like to call the convenient conversion. Basically, it is an empowering part of the faith system that I've heard a lot of going into how Christians can justify violence and justify going to war and stuff. And I've seen some really great deconstructionists. Is that what we're gonna call that group? Deconstructionists. Some wonderfully deconstructed individuals who have posted some things that help shed some light on the God of War of the Old Testament that comes in and provides a lot of reasoning and justification for some fiery preachers to then, of course, type in shadow and look at the Christ person as this also righteous warrior archetype that's gonna come wielding a sword and all this stuff. And it's kind of, that's good. Get rid of that. It's all a part of the recipe. And I think one of the more devastating aspects of Christianity in general is the entirety of having all of your salvation be based on one person and one act, and then subsequently just needing to believe in that act. Right then and there, you've just completely washed your hands of any personal responsibility for any of your actions, for being able to even be in charge of bettering yourself. You've put it all on Jesus. You've put it all on a system, on a formula, and it's bigger than you. It's better than you. It's untouchable. You couldn't even think to be able to touch it because it's holy. And that right there is the basis of the religion. I mean, I try to boil it down to the most base terms because there's really a very wonderful group of people that are trying really hard to save what little is going to be left of Christianity after this administration is done with it that they can. And it's so important to understand that the fundamentals are already rotten, and that to submit to an idea that you are less than, unable to, need a blood sacrifice to create the bridge for you to find yourself, be yourself, walk in your power, and all of that stuff. It's just it's such a an unfortunate avenue for all of that energy to flow when we've got a birthright that is well outside of any organized religion, regardless of how many thousands of years old it may be. We're talking about an eons old birthright that is ours. And so I say all that to say that I appreciate anyone who's trying to really, really emulate the teachings of Jesus, the red letters, and really just trying to only ever just really extrapolate the red letters and go for that. But at its core, the simple idea that we don't already have and didn't come equipped with what's needed, being bathed in blood and being white as snow, what do those things have in common? Well, those are the tickets, that it's only through the blood of Christ that we are made white as snow. And that's the deal breaker right off the bat for me. So I say all that again to say that I love what you guys mean in your hearts when you're trying to bring LGBTQIA affirming power to church. But what we do need to look at is how to dismantle all of that, and how to shake off all of the dogma and all of the ancient text that's constantly taken out of context on a consistent basis and used to go to war on a regular basis, and we've got to realize that what we're chasing and the power that we know does exist that we can't let go of and that we need to realize and remember is simply community, is simply our relationships with each other. It needs to stay horizontal. It needs to stop being wasted on being totally vertical. Like, we're spending all of our energy on this vertical when we need to be looking at each other face to face and seeing how worthy of praise we all are. Like, looking at each other and that uplift that comes with being of one mind and one accord, when we can just be in a room where, whether it's a silent rave and everybody's got the headphones on, or whether it's, singing along to something that's nostalgic, or we just, you get the idea. But we do really, if anyone really truly wants to embrace a future that is going to be an empowered future and an uplifted future and a integrated and what's the word I'm really looking for? Not an ascended future, but just, a transcendent future, if you will. Which ironically still really involves embracing a lot of the dirt and the reality of the situation. What we came here to do by being in the sandbox. We didn't come here to get out. We didn't come here to escape. And that's what Christianity teaches, is that we came here as a part of a system that by default is born in sin, and we are aliens, and this is a temporary situation, and we are strangers in this land, and our home lies far away. And so with that, there's no investment in the future. There's no investment in integrity when it's all said and done, because, as the saying goes, you can confess your sins on your deathbed. I mean, really, the Catholic Church, when it invented the confessionals and when it invented absolution and this concept of last rites and all of that stuff, that's where this concept of there's what's called the sea of forgetfulness, right? And so, like, when you confess your sins and you put it under the blood, it gets tossed into the sea of forgetfulness, and it's gone. And so if God forgets it, well, then, who are we to bring it up so that anyone can be held accountable? And I think most of us heard a couple weeks ago that we've got a lot of people conveniently converting as their names are coming up in a certain disclosed group of files. The Epstein files or something else, and there is going to have to be a whole episode dedicated to survivors and being a victim, and walking in power as a victim and believing the victim. And it's going to go in parallel with part of my own story, because I do have a story that I'm having a lot of Esther-esque for such a time as this moments, and I have a strong suspicion that a lot of people are, especially a lot of people who have deconstructed the religion that they're now seeing in power. It's one of those things where I know that I never really wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it came to living a spiritual life, but I absolutely, there's certain things where once the scales fell off my eyes, and once it was just too obvious how, oh gosh, I mean, it was very much just the emperor has no clothes situation, where it was just like, all of a sudden I was like, wait. I really, I know how stubborn a evangelical charismatic believer is. I was one of them, and I did not have any interest whatsoever in trying to reach back and trying to deal with that kind of knucklehead. There's a guest that I hope to have on the show. I've made an initial request that I actually am the one that needs to follow up on, now that I think about that. I was kind of just breaking the ice and testing the waters. But this guest wrote a book that has an opening in the first, just a little in the preface, that this is not verbatim, and so I'll do it better justice when I actually have them on here and get more in the details. But basically says, from this period of time to this period of time, which was their very much evangelical period of time of life, to anyone who knew me, I apologize. I'm sorry if you knew me then. And so I also have a period of time, of a self-hating homo for sure. Like my junior research project in high school was on homosexuality and how it was absolutely curable. Totally, because Jesus. And, I've researched that paper too, because I had to believe. But anyway, the convenient conversion is exactly that. It's so convenient. It is completely disarming of any kind of accountability. Um, I have seen it is only because of mass media and when a cat gets out of the bag, because if these men of God, if these ministers and these pastors and evangelists, if they 100% knew that they could keep these things a secret and keep them from coming to light and keep them, they would feel super justified. They would keep doing all of what they're doing. And to the extent that there are people who still haven't been exposed, I assure you they are still doing what they think they can get away with. That's happening. And if they knew 100% that this stuff was not going to come to light, that it was not going to be exposed, they would not have any apologies to be making. They would be taking it with them to their prayer closets. They would be confessing it to their own personal channel of confession. And for Catholicism, there's an obvious one that goes on there, but in the other branches of Protestant Christianity, you've got core groups of guys that'll be, however many, just two people, where you got just like an accountability partner, all the way up to like a full-on leadership council, that if everyone's on board and you've got everyone clearly just in the mode of like, well, his blood has washed away all sins, as long as they've confessed, as long as they've asked for forgiveness. Victimhood is not a thing, because that's your trial and tribulation, and the Lord is using that to sharpen you and to make you into a better person and all this stuff. Like, you can't be a victim when you're in the church. Like, and if you are, it's just another opportunity for God to show how merciful and gracious he is and all this stuff. It's crap. And it's dangerous, disgusting, evil, empowering, controlling, witchcrafty, like the gross kind. Like, I mean, like manipulating evil kind, like the kind of witchcraft that's not the witchcraft that we all have come to love. Mother Gaia, we love thee. But you know what I mean? Like, it's a type of like evil alchemy, though, like really and truly, and it's so perfectly positioned at every intersection when confronted by the reality of one's actual actions and repercussions. Like, one of the things that I remember experiencing when letting go of my religion and dogma belief system, and then experiencing what would be kind of considered just like, I don't know. I had like a clean slate moment where I realized I was the one who got to like, and just know this. Believers, non-believers, atheists, spirituals, earth trolls, whatever. Know this. You have the eraser in your own hands, and you are in charge of your own clean slate at any given moment. Now, that does not mean that you get to lose accountability. That does not mean, and that's one of the things I learned, is I was getting frustrated at one point, kind of in the in-between phase when I wasn't completely sober yet, and I was still looking at possibly like maybe I didn't want to die. And this is over 10 years ago. We're talking now more like 12, 13 years ago, where I was expecting to not have to pay for my actions. Straight up. I was expecting that, okay. Now I've got it. And I was expecting some sort of just like poof, poof absolution. And, gratefully, that's not how it works when you actually work the work and do the stuff. Gratefully, because you would miss out. You would be skipping steps. You would be missing the all of the very necessary uh, cement for all of the grout for all of the brick building. I mean, for just every little necessary step. And I'm so grateful that I did the crime, I did the time in my own little way. And the convenient conversion, again, let me just bring us back to what we're talking about. Anyone just joining, we're talking about the convenient conversion and what do being bathed in blood and being white as snow have in common. And really and truly, there's two types of, and this is going to sound like a total just like, and that's okay. But there's two types of Republicans. And I try not to be us, them. I do live on a spectrum. Within my own community, I get a lot of raised eyebrows and a lot of, what? When I kind of like have a kind of a both and point of view on some things. Because it's just, I'm ever evolving and I'm ever listening. I just, not to sound pretentious, but I just am. That's just the way to be. It's just the way to be. Don't be putting flags in the ground. This will definitely become one of those things that you'll hear me say as like one of my regular isms. But your sign, your flag does not tell me who you are. It tells me where you stopped. So don't be trying to come up with your creed, your code, your logo, or your coat of arms, and just keep going. Keep putting things on it. Keep adding to it, right? There's two types of Republicans. There are the ones that are brainwashed, and I love you guys, and I'm sorry, and it sucks, and I know, because it's just like you're equipped with everything you need to really double down, like, because the cross is foolishness to the world. You don't, we when you've got that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, self-affirming, when you're set up like that, it's really hard. It's really hard because the only way out is truly following your own heart. It's following your own convictions. And I am so grateful that one of the things I used to get accused of, and still do for sure, is being stubborn and being quote unquote rebellious. And I tell you what, being rebellious, now you want to talk about witchcraft, there is a fly flying around. First one of the season. Hey, spring is here. I'm telling you, we didn't really have a winter. For those who live in Portland, Oregon, which is where I am hailing from right now, we had a not winter. And I'm hoping I'm jinxing it just a little bit because a little bit of an event would be nice. I remember, was it 2020 that March that we had like a snow thing? I can't remember. Anyway, no one's watching. That's okay. You guys can watch it later. I know it's being recorded. That wasn't a pity party thing. I forget to look, and so that's good. As far as I'm concerned, the whole world is watching right now. So there's the ones that really the type of Republican that truly believes, and those are the most, well, I'll try to avoid the extremisms. I don't think those are the most scariest or dangerous, but they certainly can be. And then there's the other type of Republican. There is the fiscal Republican, the Trump, the full-on puppet master manipulator. Now, both think that they're manipulating the other. The believer Republicans think that Trump is like King Cyrus, and so that there's just this whole thing going on that spite his own face and spite the fact that he likes to grab people by the and he likes to do unthinkable things to other human beings as a form of entertainment. In spite of all of that, they believe that he is, being used, and King Cyrus is just one example. And if, for those who don't know what that means, there's an ancient story, and by the way, I follow some biblical scholars on here. I am not one of them. I am the kind of biblical scholar that comes from having had a dad who had I had my own copy of a Strong's concordance was given to me as a birthday present one year, let's put it that way. And then I lived on the Amplified Bible, and I really did, I wanted to study this stuff. So I studied a lot of scripture. 2 Timothy 2:15 was one of my banners: study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, that kind of stuff. So I'm not a scholar. So if I get things wrong, and I'm better. I remember most of the Bible more so than people who are still very much actively going to church, and so I do hold on to that. And that's not to be mean. That's just the unfortunate cliche, because ignorance is where they're kept on purpose. The King Cyrus situation is one where he was a young king, and basically, all the laws that had been given, all of the ways of doing things, all of the ways that the priests were supposed to behave, and just the Judaism, as a lot of people may know and some may not, is both a culture and a religion. It's both a nation and a religion. And there's non-practicings and practicings, just like anybody, right? But it's a unique situation, very much like Islam, where the nation and the religion are completely intertwined. And I guess there's other nations that are like that, but this one is so unique insofar as I know that just hand in hand, all of the things that go with the religion go with just being that in that land and in that culture, all that stuff. Anyway, there I go, not being a Bible scholar. The point is that after a long period of time, things that shouldn't have been forgotten were forgotten, and dust had collected on lots of old scrolls and old laws and lots of things. And so along comes this kind of doesn't know any better king who is just like, hey, let's check all this stuff out, and I want to know what it used to be like, and has people reading him things, and he's just like, oh, we're supposed to be doing it like that. We are, huh? Oh, okay, well, why the heck aren't we? Right? And so they're kind of trying to say it like Trump's doing that kind of thing, where it's like they've got his ear and he's God's vessel right now. Like, they are not kidding themselves that he goes to heaven on the weekends, or that he actually knows any of what he's talking about, other than there's probably the real super, 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 National Enquirer wackadoos that think that he's downloading all sorts of things and gonna be raised up at some point. Anyway, it's all crap, guys. It's all crap. And I'm sorry about that, because it sucks. And I was just talking the other day about the young me, the early 20-something me that was a young Christian recording artist, and I had recorded a Christian hip hop album, and it was kind of like this, pop hip hop fusion thing. And we're talking like 2003, and I was on the phone with execs from Sparrow Records at one point, and we were doing this thing, opening for the likes of Switchfoot. And back then in the Christian world, that was a big deal. And, there was this just tiny bit of success that was getting ready to happen. And I'm a preacher's kid too. So I was ready. I was ready with my ministry. I was ready with this just new wave of music that I wanted to bring and all this stuff. But I tell you what, I've said this in another clip, and I'll say it for sure. I'm so glad that I'm gay, and that was a thing that I had to wrestle with, that brought me to my knees. That was the what is it? Unstoppable force meets the immovable object moment in my life. And I really tried to take being gay with me into being a new and different type of Christian, which is why I understand the attempts being made sincerely. And I understand that they're sincere. And I understand that there's something that Christians don't understand about people who have spiritual experiences outside of Christianity that I think a lot of people outside of Christianity need to turn around and look at people and other religions too. One of the big validators for people when it comes to this and when it comes to I know what I know and I've seen what I've seen and I've felt what I've felt is exactly that, is feeling the spiritual experience. And people think that a spiritual experience only comes from people. Christians think that a spiritual experience, other than a divine intervention for the sake of inspiring a conversion, only comes after a conversion in your life, and that anything outside of that is basically they're going to tell you it's a demon. They're going to tell you it's the devil. Even if you were to literally like find that rhythm and vibration, and because trust me, at least like once a month I still try to move something with my mind. I'm always practicing my telekinesis. Don't ever stop practicing your telekinesis, people. I'm telling you, just keep it up. When I wrote that song Deviate, I wasn't kidding. But you could literally move something with your mind and they would just absolutely start speaking in tongues and trying to cast the demon out of you in the name of Jesus. So there's that kind of double down, like there's really very little you can do to convince someone who's really studied up and in the faith. And that's why I didn't really foresee wanting to reach back and do much work there because, man, I don't know. I ended up having to really learn the hard way, and I kind of earned it because, like, I was at one point standing on the corner of 18th and Castro in San Francisco with, repent signs. And people who remember that, buddy, are potentially going to, definitely. I hope they see this. Let's put it that way. Picking my nose. Podcast protocol. What are you doing? I did forget to get myself some water, so I might pull the I am the producer prerogative and do a little quickie break. But I had something to read specifically about the convenient conversion, and I'm going to read it, not to be redundant, but also just frankly, I'll be honest, as a part of some of the marketing behind this podcast, I want to create some shorts that I can clip out that are going to be a little bit less of my ramblings, but I also want to be able to just kind of ramble a little bit too, because a lot of this stuff is inspired in the moment. And, when it comes to having a heart for people who really love Jesus, and I just started reading this book about Krishna, which is gorgeous. Gorgeous. I can't tell you how much that white culture, white evangelical Western culture misses out on and is so bleached. We're bleached. Like some beautiful things have been bleached out of us. And the ability to look for God in the face of a multitude of cultures and a multitude of incarnation type stories and experiences is surely one of those things that has been bleached out of us. And um I've seen some very passionate, and in my case most of them are Southern, just because that was where my dad's origin story starts, is in Mississippi. And anytime we had visiting ministers, it was always friends of friends from that area. And then of course we'd go there. And I've seen some weeping, passionate men that weren't on TV. And I've seen it slip into performative. And I'll tell you what, I had a radar for performative. That was one of those things. My dad and I called it, discernment, and there's still discernment. I still call it discernment, but he had a radar for performative too, because he was a very weepy, passionate man. Like, genuinely brainwashed, and he still is. Like he's not gone. Um, but even in his prime, just ball at the drop of a hat, and genuinely so. Like, um, these guys definitely have some very genuine desires to be in a loving lover, knows me inside and out, knows my every nook and cranny kind of very homoerotic relationship with their savior. And I do not demean it to say, well, I wouldn't, I mean, because homoerotic is fine by me, but I mean, I'm not even trying to like be crude for the sake of like putting like some homo twist on there, but it's like, it's a beautiful thing to behold when you see the desire for the connection, when you see the desire for that intimacy. There's a need and a desire for an intimacy that they completely put all on their relationship with Jesus. And there's no room for, oh, this is a download I'm having right now. Those poor guys are only allowed to have that male intimacy that they are so denied and so warned about by just projecting it all onto this fictional idea of the perfect man that loves them better than any woman could. Oof. Bless their hearts. Bless their hearts. And then you get, the biggest toe tappers in the world that end up in seats of power that have closets and skeletons in those closets and lots of skeletons. And so there's some freedom that needs to come, and it's tough. It's tough to bring freedom to knuckleheads. And I was a knucklehead. I was the chief of sinners. Let's be real. Like, I was a stubborn smartass when it came to the things of God. And, I'd I would be the first one to, if you were to do something miraculous right in front of my face, I'd be like, Shandara, in Jesus' name. Absolutely. 100%. That was me. So when I speak about those things, I'm not just like, I haven't just watched a lot of like videos, and I haven't just seen documentaries or Jesus Camp this or whatever. Like, I used to be that jerk face in my 20s. And even some a little bit in my 30s too, when it came to, there was a weird kind of like death throw rebound moment in the depths of my alcoholism, when that was still a heavy duty thing, that didn't know how to mourn walking away from the religion properly. That ultimately, what it took years to realize that that's what that was mourning the leaving of the religion. So the convenient conversion segment really turned into more than I was expecting it to, mostly because of all of this recent mumbo jumbo about this apocalypse BS. And one of the things you may have heard me say, well, I guess I mostly just write those in like text posts, but you're not going to get these people to invest in long-term outcomes when they really believe that the world is going to end, and that it needs to end, and that it's like they came here to get a ticket to get out. And in that, they just absolutely wash away all sense of responsibility or any accountability. So it's just about power shielding power and money insulating corruption. And anytime that there's any actual legitimate scrutiny, poof, in comes the faith talk, in comes the religion talk. And what we need is relationship with each other, and what we need is sanctioned and designated and intentional gatherings that allow us to tap back into our ancestry, tap back into to the campfires and the dances and the not to go all full Burning Man, but Burning Man is an answer to that in a way, and it has been for many, many years for a lot of people. But one of the things that hurt the most and was very mind-boggling for a lot of people when the election went the way it went was that it was just unfathomable that the natural course of history wouldn't point towards continued equality and continued justice. But we haven't fully earned that yet because we are denying ourselves this thing that we is part of our birthright as humans when it comes to living happy and joyful and spiritual and just satisfied lives, which is, you know, one of the reasons that the Republicans were so successful is that the church was hijacked. The church was completely hijacked. Like the church was hijacked. And the most passionate and charismatic and doing the work of them, we're talking Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, probably like sometimes Thursdays or Friday nights, depending on when they like to do the youth group, if the youth group's going to be a separate thing. So you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 rallies a week continuously. Like church don't shut down, like maybe because of weather. And even then, there's like a Zoom link that you're going to get. It's consistent. It is consistent. The smallest little home group church all the way up to the mega churches is consistent, and they're consistent, and they're consistently affirming things with each other and around each other and to each other and looking at each other and saying, isn't God good? Isn't God good? Isn't God good? Isn't God good? Isn't God worthy of all the praise? Isn't he worthy? Isn't he? Yes, yes, he is. Yes. And none of them are just looking at each other and saying, oh, you're so worthy of praise. And that's the secret. That's the ticket. Because I'll end this particular part of the whole religious segment that's under the umbrella of the convenient conversion with um it's important that we recognize that they are having spiritual experiences, because the math of what it takes to have a spiritual experience is the same for everyone, for every single person on earth. The formula, the 1 + 1 = this, is the same. There are principles that involve having your awe and your gratitude activated and being awe inspired and having moments of communion and affirmation and validation with peers that are part of the package. That's part of what we all come with in order to activate that part of us that vibrates higher. Okay. And while and I hate to still say it's an us and them kind of thing, but it just kind of still is right now, while we do the work, while they would never validate anything spiritual that we experience as being a legitimate love infused spiritual experience, we must look at the formula being used over here and recognize that spiritual experiences are the birthright across the board. But if one chooses to live stagnated and in a place of malformation because of lack of growth and lack of movement and lack of progression, unfortunately, that's the kind of cancer that's become bombs dropping in the name of God. And it's no different than radical Islam, and it's no different than Zionism, and it's not just Christian nationalism either. I keep seeing this, and I appreciate it. And golly gee, I'll get to these other segments in a sec, I promise. There's going to be an edited version of this for sure. I see a noble effort to continue to distinguish Christianity from Christian nationalism, and it's Christian nationalism right now is the catalyst that's being used to expose Christianity, period. Because Christian nationalism is what happens with that kind of a religion. Radical Islam is what happens with that kind of a religion. Radical Zionism is what happens with that kind of a religion. And what do I mean by that kind of a religion? It's not just a religion that's based on having prophets and expectations of messiahs. It's the kind of religion that literally says, we are chosen and you are not. And there's no greater evil on the planet. If you want to ask anyone who's ever lived in utter loneliness, who's not really built for lonely, not really built for being alone, and they don't believe in hell or have any kind of religious experience, but if you were to ask what hell feels like, it would be those moments of pure and utter separation. Any attempt to either believe in or live in the illusion of separation, insofar as we've got it and you don't, even including and even more so because we're the ones who have to do the work. I'll keep saying it. Those of us who are not bound by dogma that say we've got it and they don't, because they're over here having spiritual experiences and we're better than that because we don't have sky daddies and we don't have make-believe illusions. Well, we're no better. We're no better when we do that. It's not going to work because you're cutting yourself off from source. You're cutting yourself off from spirit. You're cutting yourself off from the flow of relationship and what it is to be a human being. So any attempt to say we're chosen and you're not, which is why I hesitate so much to even do the us and them. But right now there's distinguishing that's happening because that's how we look at what needs to be cleaned that's been festering, and this has been festering for a long time. And Christian nationalism is just really just the surface. Like when things get to the surface and you can actually see it, it's already been doing stuff for a long time underneath and throughout the entire immune system and throughout the entire structure. Like by the time it starts to show up on the skin, it's like, ooh, okay. And so that's what's there's no redeeming that kind of a religion. The only thing that there is to be careful about when deconstructing, because deconstruction must come with reconstruction. That's a whole other show. Is that we don't throw the spiritual baby out with the bathwater, that we recognize that we're allowed to continue to experience synchronicity and serendipity and to feel things and to feel compelled to say things to complete strangers like that you may feel or sense or what have you, and to have none of it have anything to do with a Jesus or a cross or a sacrifice. It's all just a mechanism for control. It's all just a mechanism for intelligence and manipulation. And that is the bulk of that was the main segment, so I don't feel too bad about going forever on it, but that's the bulk of the convenient conversion. There's going to be a lot of crossover and cross-pollination going forward through these, because for me, my Esther moment and we'll talk about what that means for those who don't know what an Esther moment is, but it's for such a time as this moment. It involves a lot of what's happening in real time, and as it's happening in real time, I'm realizing, I'm like, oh my God, I've got the thing that we need to say about that. And so it's important to realize that we literally have a I don't know how to put this without it sounding too flippant. The amount of indiscriminate immaturity and God's smite mentality that goes along with white Christian nationalism as a default is so laughable if you could pull the curtain back and see what's really going on and what power is really there and why, if it weren't so utterly dangerous. And there's no room for standing on ceremony regarding conveniently pulling up, troops this and honoring this. I mean, like, our troops are paying the price. And I'm an Army kid. I was raised to honor the service of our military members, and I do way more than this administration does. Before they released before Mark Kelly and oh, I don't remember these. I'm bad with names, so I don't have it. Before they released those videos about um refusing illegal orders, I was talking all about that kind of stuff already. I was posting things about just like, look, remember what you guys signed up for. So just don't ever get it twisted that I don't have a love for what the heart of a military service member is all about. And these are moments that are hard because these are opportunities for there to be a sense of pride when you're set up for that kind of warfare and you're trained for that kind of warfare. It's like, you don't want to get all dressed up with nowhere to go, right? And as awful as that may sound, there's a part of that comes with wanting to kind of like see some action and like, hey, this wasn't for nothing, like, let's get this show on the road kind of thing. And so then mix in there, you've got just righteous validation coming from completely brainwashed people who had no business taking that when I was a child, I spake as a child kind of like wisdom with them into adulthood, because that right there is why religion is dangerous. That's what happens with it. God, I could just go on and on about how it's such a no-brainer that if you just look at the history of the world, where all the wars come from. Good. So it is maddening. It's maddening. It's really hard to know that that people who have their fingers on the triggers right now have an ancient text being manipulated to give them all the justification they could possibly need, and it's frustrating. So that went on for a super long time. I am going to talk about Pussifer's Normal Isn't and U2's Days of Ash. I really want to talk about these just for a hot second, because after everything I just said, with as maddening as all of that reality is, both of these projects come along and give me personally, and I know what works for me works for others. Pussifer comes along and gives me something just really, like, it is the best way to explain a Pussifer album is to know that hidden in all of the metaphor and what could be described as grotesque are just pearls and gems of wisdom. And I think that there's a genius in the way that Maynard works with this project, because, of all the projects that Maynard works with, I think this is the one that, even just starting with the name, obviously, Pussifer is a combination of two words. Right off the bat, if it's not for you, you're not going to hear it. And if that offends you, then you're not going to get it. And if the delivery system for the art and for the message is not going to penetrate your pride or your snobbery or just preconceived notions as to what art should look or sound like anyway, well, then you're not going to get it. And I love that because, I like to market things and I think that things should be marketable, but at the same time, it's kind of a neat little, this is meant for those who are willing to dig for it. And so with this particular album, and that's how I describe all Pussifer's albums. This particular album, I'm going to actually play you a little commercial for their concert that goes around it. But it is 100% not just like the emperor has no clothes, but like they literally start like going in and describing like the pimple on the emperor's ass that's not wearing no clothes. Like they are calling it out for just the utter pragmatic grotesqueness that's involved. Like for just the putrid. There's one of the one of the lines in one of the songs, "State of Things," I think is the name of the song, but listen to the whole album. But one of them, it just says, "You're a bunghole." I mean, I know that sounds so silly, but like it lists all these things of just like you're this, you're that. It's almost like this kind of really twisted, like you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, where it's like it goes down the list of like you're rotten apple shoved in the core of a, whatever. Like I'm pulling a blank. It's late. I'm live at midnight, but I don't care because this is when I decided to get on. Anyway, no apologies, Raspberry. Just read your shit. You just don't hear bunghole very often in the context of taking anything seriously. And so it's just another example of like calling it as it is. And then also like, even just in describing him, he's not going to get the dignity of having too much artistry involved in the illustrative attempts. Like not a lot of thesaurus going on, but yes, yet there is. But like, even in describing how gross the man is, like he's not going to be too poetic about it because he doesn't even deserve that. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And I think that'll actually make a lot of sense when you watch this. This is fun. I was able to download this off their website. This is a commercial for, they already recorded the concert, so it's available to rent. And you can get a DVD of it and everything. But here you go. Check it out. This is from Pussifer's Normal. Pussifer's Normal Isn't.
We are just getting started. Normal Isn't comes to life. Watch Pussifer perform the debut of their album, Normal Isn't. Recorded live at the Pacific Stock Exchange in Los Angeles, California. Available now for rent or purchase at pussifertv.com.
Yeah. That's Pussifer, baby. And then see if I can get it pulled up. Yeah, there it is. So here we've got U2's Days of Ash that came out on Ash Wednesday. And I think a lot of people already heard about this and a lot of people have been talking about it. But one of the things that I am reminded of is, Bono's had quite the journey. And a lot of people on the Christian side of it think he's just a half-assed Christian. And a lot of people on the secular side of it think that he's way too Jesus-y. And I know how that can be. But there's no doubts about where Bono's heart is and where the band's heart is and how much global impact U2 has had behind the scenes, specifically Bono, but I know that the Edge is also in there with it, and I don't know how much they actually do as far as the specifics, but he's definitely one of my heroes. And when this dropped, it was I'll keep this kind of short and sweet because listening to it says all that you need to know. If I were to describe the musicality of it, I would say that each of the song kind of they go through different eras of U2. So like for every song on there, um, let's just see if we can get that going. For every song on there, I felt like it was like an era, and so I was like, oh man, that reminds me of like Joshua Tree U2 or that kind of stuff. So that was neat, but Bono's at the top of his game, like vocally speaking. And for a man his age, to be able to just really keep it ripe and fresh and just exercised and stuff, it's really good. It's really great. It's very encouraging for me. That's for damn sure. And really and truly, I've heard too, like over the years from different vocal coaches that I've worked with and stuff, that men and women mature differently, and voices change. Like if you listen to Billy Joel or Elton John when they got famous initially, like either the tapes were sped up when it was mastered, or clearly their voices were like they went from tenors to like kind of baritones, right? Bono, on the other hand, has defied logic and physics, and he really has. I know from reading stuff about him that one of his personal passions was to be considered an actual true tenor at some point, and he never really considered himself one. Dude, so good. If you are into listening to good vocal performances, even in the rawness and all of it, it is exactly what it's supposed to be, right when it's supposed to be. It's just magnificent. And you go to propaganda.u2.com and you're going to get basically the equivalent of like the booklet, the insert that would have been in the album. And it's got all the lyrics, and it's also got some essays and some poetry written by the band. And then all of the lyric music videos for all the songs are there. So that's fun. Super great. Enjoyed that quite a bit. So that covers Buds. And in case we forgot. Oh, and one thing I will say in regards to the Pussifer album. If you are someone who has listened to the previous albums, it is a little bit of a departure, and I like it. It's kind of like if Pussifer and LCD Sound System collaborated a little bit. So that was fun. And if you've never listened to LCD Sound System, I strongly recommend it. What I like about them is that, much like Bjork, the experimentation is timeless. You can't tell if they experimented that way in like the 90s or in the aughts or yesterday. Like you can't tell. So gotta love that. Got to love that. Okay, last but not least, so that I can actually call it a night and wind down and hopefully go to sleep at some point, although I'm enjoying this. I will definitely have to do an edited version of that first opening super long monologue on the convenient conversion. It gets me going. There's no room on this planet in the future for these types of religions. And, traditions and standing on ceremony. A lot of times they look pretty, but it's also the exact same thing. It's just stagnation. When we stake a claim on a certain way of doing things and operating things and say that's just the way it is. I mean, sometimes things need to shed, and then we need to put them in a beautiful museum where they can be observed for the awesome time that they had on their journey and how it affected the planet when it was a thing, It's time for Christianity to go the way of Greek mythology, and it needs to just be celebrated as this beautiful, artistic, illustrative way of looking at a creative force and all these different things. But for anyone to actually take any of it practically, or certainly try to trigger or implement an apocalypse on behalf of the second coming of a Messiah, when children are being bombed into pieces because of that, because that's expendable stuff when it comes to the big picture. Yeah, as you can tell, it gets me going. So we're going to end on a positive note, and I really enjoyed this book. It was very timely. Robin Wall Kimmerer, she wrote a book called The Service Berry, and this is a little segment called Berry Good Books, as you can tell. And I'm really excited about it. So if you have any suggestions for these, or / if you want to phone in or something, we can do that on this show, and I can definitely get you a link, and we can talk about a book that you've either read, that I've read as well, or you can suggest a book to read. We can even do like a buddies book club kind of thing. Hello, how adorable. Anyway, The Service Berry. I'm going to put this over here because I can, so it's not quite in my face. I enjoyed it. It's really good. And I wrote a review, and I'm going to actually read the review on this one just because it's worthy of me just reading it instead of stumbling over it, because it's the first book that Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote. It was a slow burn, and I've heard her talk about this on NPR. It took its time, and it was kind of handed around and talked about, and slowly but surely it just kind of crept its way up, and next thing you know, it ends up number one on the New York Times bestseller list. And what I love about that is that even just the story around how her first book kind of grew legs and was able to kind of be fruitful and multiply, if you will. Almost you could say maybe subconsciously inspired her to write The Service Berry, because I haven't heard her say that specifically, but when you read it and you think about that particular story of how it was just a lot of just people being abundantly generous and giving it away, not keeping it, not hoarding, that kind of thing. So anyway, some books argue and some books inform, and this one invites. And so when you read The Service Berry, it is small in size, but it is massive in implication. It doesn't come at capitalism with a bullhorn. It hands you a bowl of berries and asks a quieter question. What if the world is already teaching us how to share? Kimmerer does what she does best. She moves between ecology and economy the way that some writers move between paragraphs. Seamless. The serviceberry tree becomes more than a plant. It becomes a living critique of scarcity thinking. It produces abundance without invoices. It feeds birds, deer, humans, microbes. No contracts, no hoarding, no quarterly earnings report. And the dangerous part is it feels obvious once she says it. The brilliance of this book is that it doesn't shame the reader. It doesn't posture. It doesn't perform outrage. It simply points to the forest and says, notice. And in that noticing, you begin to feel the tension between gift economies and extraction economies, between reciprocity and transaction. There's a tenderness in her writing that disarms you. She is a scientist, yes, precise and grounded, but she writes like someone who believes wonder is a form of rigor, and that combination is rare. What moved me most is this. She doesn't suggest abandoning markets entirely. She suggests remembering that markets are nested inside something older and wiser. Relationship. My favorite word. The earth operates on reciprocity long before humans arrived with spreadsheets. It's not naive, it's ancestral. So if Kimmerer's first offering, braiding sweetgrass, widened your lens, then the service berry sharpens your focus. It asks, what kind of economy do you participate in daily? Not theoretically, but practically. Do you hoard? Do you reciprocate? Do you recognize the gifts you're standing in? This is a quiet book with radical implications. It won't yell at you. It will change how you see a tree. And once that happens, it's hard to unsee it. I strongly recommend it. And if you do end up getting a copy of this and reading it, let me know. Let me know what you thought. And you can either come back to this live, probably on my YouTube channel is the best way to do that. If you're watching this on YouTube, I doubt that you are. I don't really have any way of promoting that quite yet, but we'll get there. But if you do end up seeing this on YouTube in syndication, let me know how you felt after reading it, and let me know how it spoke to you. I think that this is a really important conversation to get started in such a simple way. And when we've got people like Robin Wall Kimmerer, who one of the beautiful things about reading her work is she's her Native American background is so seamlessly woven into the matter of factness of how she views the world and the lens, all the way up, starting with just the creation mythology to just basic practices and stuff. And when I think about how to fix the world, which I often do, and I come across books like this, and there's more books like this for sure that are going to come up, and I've already got my list going for future very good books segments. I'll have to get a handle on the main segment portion. I'm going to have to figure out how to see. I don't like reading a script for a podcast or going live, so I'm going to have to figure out how to give myself some guardrails on not taking the entire hour for the show to just talk about the one topic before going into the segments. But I can do what I want. I just want to keep doing it better. When I read books like this, I look at them as scripture, as like a living, breathing scripture. And when I say scripture, I mean like a download. I mean like universe is download. Spirit is downloading into this creative person, into this willing vessel, an analogy, a parable that we need. And our parables and our needs for analogies evolve as we evolve. And we can only live on so many. And I'll tell you that I find such richness in the parables of Jesus that I use them all the time because they're good parables. And not a single one of them have anything to do with him dying for our sins or being God. They all have to do with being in relationship with each other, even ones that are about quote unquote the kingdom. So when I read books like this, there's certain tasks that I can almost say I take and look at a list of things that I needed to do or were on my to-do list on how to explain a certain thing or how do I get this point across. And I can almost just read that book and, okay, well, don't got to do that one anymore. I can just do a nice review and make sure to recommend that book to as many people as possible. That's one of those books. That is one of those books where it's not like I want to just throw it over my shoulder or anything, but come talk to me like after you've read it, right? And then we can really hash out some real think tank kind of stuff. Even at a local community level, she uses the little libraries as an example at one point in the book. And in my opinion, I think Portland, Oregon is like the city of the little library. Oh my God. And I've heard differing views on those too, which is kind of interesting. I think more of them should be non-perishable pantries, that's for sure. But this is one of those books that I kind of take and I put in and listed in my own kind of canon, if you will, that's ever growing and ever evolving that I've been developing over the years. Right up there with, say, Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza and Deviate, the book, not the song. The song was inspired by the book by Bo Lotto. Those all to me. Oh, there's another one too that I was recently reminded of. And I'll bring that up in another episode as well. Caravan of Remembering by Daniel Goodenough. That's a whole thing. Anyway, there's lots of those kinds of books that even things like the Hunger Games, y'all, like those are downloads. Those are imagination downloads that are coming in and giving us some things to think about and talk about. Last but not least, my song Deviate is available on all streaming services. The protest song Ice Always Melts is also out there. And there's some other songs that I have out that are a little lonely. So go check them out. Go check this one out. And the other thing that I want to mention, last but not least, is I think I'll do it this way. I'm going to share my screen in such a way so that you can see. All right, you should be able to hear me still. But this is the landing page for itswherewemeet.com. And itswherewemeet.com is an umbrella. As you can tell, it's not exactly very specific as to what it means. That's the landing spot right now for the sign up for my vocal and performance coaching. That one-on-one kind of interaction with each individual is very, very much going to be intentional towards vocal performance and vocal perfections and techniques and scales. And we're also going to just provide some opportunities to talk about the dream and just talk about what you want to do as well. Like just as a person, as a performer. Clearly, I like to get into the weeds with some things. And so know that it's not just limited to singing. It's not just limited to speaking. It could be presentation in general, stage presence, anything that goes into performing on any level. You could be flipping patties and putting fries in a bag or sweeping floors. And I guarantee you I've been there, done that. And I've got a way to choreograph some moves around it that make sure that you're still doing it as your highest self and on your highest octave. So there is a GoFundMe campaign going that has afforded quite a few sessions that are still available for grabs. I have 9 left right now that are already prepaid. And the GoFundMe information can be found on my Facebook page and some of my other socials. I'm not going to try to post all of that on here. That is both to kind of help me get off the ground with doing this as an independent contractor, as well as straight up just taking it not just as like something to help me kind of like pay bills, but really for each one of those, each $25 that's raised. I mean, it's a $5 discount on the $30 30-minute session that I would normally charge. And I'm just basically treating it as though I'm getting paid to do that work. And I've got 3 people already lined up. I'm really excited about it. My first session with my first person is going to be this Saturday. And I'm really, really excited about it. And I actually have a kind of a commercial, fun little promo video I've been putting together with some different scales and what to expect and kind of stuff. And so that's a whole other thing. And if you know anyone who is at all interested, and if it's not you and you know someone that just needs a little push, just send them my way. Okay, well, hopefully the next time I see you guys, I do have some pretty solid stuff lined up for episode 3 just in case, but hopefully the next time I see you guys, you will be seeing me with at least a co-host for part of the time, and it won't be just me and you won't be so bored. And if not, I'm still going to do the damn thing. But yeah, this has been great for me. Hope it was good for you. It's just helping me kind of clear my throat and get used to how long it actually takes to get what I want to say out of my face. Because really, I think that's the biggest thing I'm noticing is I want to say it all at the same time, all the time. So, love y'all. I don't hate Christians. Love the sinner, but hate the sin, right? It's just the religion. It's the religion. It's such a dangerous thing. So, guys, keep your chin up. Do not deny yourself spiritual experiences. And, you know, I'm going to throw this up one more time, actually, while it's still there. If any of what I talked about you want to go deeper with on a one-on-one basis and just kind of like either, wow, that really sparked my interest and I'd be curious to see what you have to say about that, and you want to reach out to me, you can go here and set up a time to reach out to me as well. And I will do that. And, I will consider that one of the sessions for sure. But I know the value of that. And I have certainly wanted to be able to just kind of chew the fat with someone in regards to how we can do things better, make things better, and talk some spirit talk and just receive some encouragement. So if anyone who is interested in having more of a spiritual experience based life that, and I'm not talking about living in the clouds, and I'm not talking about a new way of getting high. Like, this is integrated. Like, you get dirty, you get in the sandbox. Like, trust me, dirt is spiritual. Rocks are spiritual. I'm not trying to be cliche here, but like, nature is spiritual. So it has a lot to do with micro, macro, and really not trying to escape. We're not talking about escapism. We're talking about empowerment and walking in power. So, yeah, we can do that too. And so it's wherewemeet.com is I'm going to do this again because I can. So it's where, no apostrophe, obviously, just it's wherewemeet.com. In fact, if I take the frame off for just a second, you can see, just for you guys, it's wherewemeet.com. Poof. All right. All right, kids. I'm going to call it a night, and I am going to go ahead and play us out with the old intro, outro. See you guys next time.
Yes, it's my real name. I was raised by a Pentecostal preacher from Mississippi and Portland, Oregon, which probably explains a lot. I wrote and performed my first song for my dad's church when I was just 10. Been a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Been married, divorced, closeted, out, drunk for years, and sober for years. Been a good dad and a bad dad, and somehow lucky enough to be a young grandpa. This show exists because I'm a creator, and if something inspires me, there's a pretty good chance it'll inspire you too. Music, science, art, politics, religion, adorable cats and dogs, awe and gratitude, or why we laugh at our own farts. Somehow along the way, I decided to go left instead of right, and now I'm addicted to breaking habits and noticing things. I'm Buddy Raspberry, and this is my show.